Hey everyone, it's Jake of Jake's Metal Chat. Hope you're all well and welcome to episode 98 of my Metal Vault, where I will be exploring and showing you my favorite albums within the world of metal. As well as talking about the albums, I'll also be talking about the band, so a brief history and any releases leading up to the album that I have picked. And we are going back to the US for this episode and for some more death metal. And I have a feeling that a lot of us in the VC know who this band is, unless this was one that passed you by. And to anyone that has been into death metal for a very long time and is looking for a new band, then I do recommend that you go check these guys out. I remember hearing these guys around the late 2000s, maybe early 2010s. And one of the songs, when I heard it, I was like, I need to listen to this album. And if you've heard it, you know how heavy and dark this is. And of course, in the description below, there will be a link to the album so you can go and have a listen for yourselves if you've not heard it before or you have not heard it in a while. Unless you do have it on CD, vinyl, or cassette, then give it another listen. And I know these guys are on hold at the moment, but I hope they come back to do some live shows because they are a band that I need to see live so I can tick them off my list of live bands that I've seen. And of course, I will be talking about who's on the album, who did the engineering, the mixing, the mastering, the photography, and anything else to do with the album. So, without further ado, here is Acheron with their 1992 debut, Rites of the Black Mass. And what an album this is! This is the re-release on Vic Records back in 2018. Of course, originally released on Turbo Records in 1992. Here is the artwork without the lights reflecting off the case. Of course, that wasn't the logo they used back in the day, but I do like that logo all the same. Of course, you've got the guys on the back, and I will name all those guys on the back there again once I get into the album itself. Got some lyrics there, and back here, got interview with Vincent Crowley, who is the only sole member of the band. Almost dropped the book then, which is this guy right here. You'll find the start of the interview. There we go, right here. And of course, the CD. Going to show you the CD as well. Nice little CD there, black and red. And of course, get the booklet back in the case, which is a little bit harder than trying to get a vinyl record back in its sleeve. Right there, the logo there. And show the CD one more time. Yeah, one of the songs on here, I was like, that song is just the right level of heavy, dark atmosphere that I'm looking for. And yeah, this album from start to finish just has that same, like with Sarcophago's INRI, that consistent flow. And yeah, before I crack on with the rest of this album, talk about all the songs, and of course, here there's a ton of intros to get through. Let's talk about the band themselves, Acheron. So, they formed in 1988 in Tampa, Florida, and they were active from that year until 1992, then reformed in 94 to 2010, and then 2010 to 2016, and 2017 to 2018, and then 2024 to this year of 2026. And the name itself means River of Woe, which is one of the 5 rivers in the realm of Hades in Greek mythology. And an interesting fact about Vincent Crowley, he was a reverend for the Church of Satan up until 1997, which is when Anton LaVey passed away. And of course, there was another member of the same church who has done the keyboards on this album here and was also the keyboard player in the band from 88 to 89. And yeah, these guys, it says on him Metallum Death Black Metal. It say a little bit of black metal in there, more of like the so pretty much pre the Norwegian sound, obviously, but I would just say more death metal. But I'm thinking maybe because why it's saying black metal because of the lyrical themes, which is Satanism, anti-Christianity, and blasphemy, which of course quite a few bands within death metal that have similar lyrical themes. And before we crack on with the album itself, so sticking with the year when they formed in 88, so alongside other bands such as Vital Remains, Cannibal Corpse, and Paradise Lost, just to name a few. They released two demos in 89, one in 1990, one in 1991. They did a split in 1992 before releasing their debut. So let's talk about their first demo called Mass Noir, which is a 6-track demo. It was an independent release. Not sure when in 89 it was released. The second demo was released in October of 89, so sometime before that. And on here was Vincent Crowley on guitar, Michael Smith on vocals, David Smith on bass, and Ron Hughes on drums. And of course, the performer, as he's classed as the guest musician, that is Peter H. Gilmore, who I mentioned was the keyboardist from 88 to 89 and has appeared on pretty much every single release of Acheron's. And getting on to the second demo, which is a live rehearsal. So that is a 7-track demo, also a single-sided one, and an independent release, and it has 3 covers. The first band I don't know too much about, but the song's called Jewels of Satan. And the last 2 are Dethroned Emperor, which is a Celtic Frost cover, and Raise the Dead, which is a Bathory cover. And if this is on YouTube, I will be giving it a listen because I definitely want to listen to those 2 covers. And of course, love Bathory and I love Celtic Frost, who I've mentioned here on the series. And of course, so many more bands like them I need to mention as well. And in 1990, they did one called 1990 Future Release, which is now independent release. Not sure when in 1990 it was released. So it could have been anywhere between January up until December. And of course, this demo, as this is the re-release that I got of this album, that demo is on this re-release. And then in 1991, they also have a demo, which is the same name of their debut, Rites of the Black Mass, which is a 10-track demo, which usually when you think of demo is usually like 3-4 tracks. And this clocks a little over 29 minutes. And Vincent brought in guest musicians as he's the only one credited as a full-time band member. So here was Peter H. Gilmore, David Smith, James Strauss, who joined the band in 1988. And what? Actually, no, wait, let me say that again. He was, yeah, the original drummer up until 1992. And they did have a drummer after him in 89, which was Ron. So I think he couldn't do the 2 demos beforehand. I don't know what was going on there, but they had a drummer fill in for him until he can come in to record a release. So this one he is just a guest member on. And this was produced by Scott Burns. And the artist was Rex, who did the artwork for this album, as well for another band called Blood Ritual in 2005. And then we're getting on to the split, and I mentioned this one already because I mentioned it when I spoke about Ceremony of Opposites by Samael, and that is the Triumph of Death split, which I will say on the bands again. So, of course, Acheron, Samael, Carcass, Beherit, Mortuary, and Death Yell. and that was released on Turbo Records, which was the label that these guys were signed to. Again, don't know when in 1992 this was released. And then in April, the 13th of April, 1992, they released this. And of course, to mention the label again, Turbo Records. And this has the lineup that is on here that was on that first that 1991 demo. So for the members here, so Vincent Crowley on vocals, bass, Peter Slate on guitars, and of course went on to form the band Druid Lord. And that band was one that I missed when they came to the UK. Hopefully it'll come back soon because they are one hell of a great band. And of course, James Strauss on drums. Of course, he's still currently in a band today. And this was the last thing he was a part of with the band. And he's also from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, like Vincent Crowley. And I think I mentioned this already. If I haven't, so he moved to Florida when he was 17 years old. And then moved back to Pittsburgh for a while. And then obviously now the band's residing in Columbus, Ohio. And of course, Peter H. Gilmore was the keyboardist on here. And for backing vocals is the late, great Mike Browning, who, of course, mentioned his band Nocturnus, and was, of course, in Morbid Angel, Nocturnus AD, Incubus, After Death, and was, of course, in Acheron from 92 to 94. Appeared on 2 albums, and the same split, the Triumph of Death split, a single, 1 EP, and a compilation. And of course, done various guest sessions for other bands. Of course, he sadly passed away back in July of this year. May he rest in peace. And I mentioned before, those who are gone may be gone, but the legacy lives on. And you know when you hear his vocals, because his vocals are just very much present on this album and blend really well with Vincent's vocals. I mentioned Rex earlier. He did the cover art for this album. Vincent and Peter produced the album along with Scott Burns, who engineered it as well as produced. And you know, Scott Burns, but I will get him up again. He's done guest stuff for other bands, and as well as producing other albums for bands such as these guys. And Eamon, which is, of course, who DSI used to be. Atheist, Atrocity, Cancer, Cannibal Corpse, and Corner, Cynic, Death, Deicide, Demented Ted, Demolition Hammer, and Disincarnate, Gorguts, and Internal Bleeding, Meverick Creation, Loud Blast, Monstrosity, Master, Napalm, Death, Obituary, Pestilence, just to name a few there. And of course, there is Keith Harris, who did the photography for this picture right here, and as well as the other ones in there, the one in the booklet. And of course, for the lyrics, Peter Gilmore, Peter H. Gilmore. And that is who was engineering, producing, photography, cover art, everything on that album. And there are 20 tracks overall, half of which are intros. And yeah, the intros all have these really orchestrated keyboards, like the pipe organ that you would hear in a church, which really sets the tone of the album, really sets that mood. And the satanic verses add that dark atmosphere to an already heavy album. It's raw and heavy. And yeah, and with this album, like with Sarcophagus INRI, it's got that consistent flow because all the songs are heavy They all got parts where it goes fast, mid-tempo, and even slows down to almost a doom metal level. And with Vincent, he does growls and does some high vocal, like high screams, so very much in that black metal vein. So you can see why it says death black metal on Metallum. But of course, when I hear keyboards, sometimes I do think of bands like Rotting Christ with keyboards as well. So keyboards in black metal always good as well. And it works really well with these guys as right here. So, of course, you got the first intro, and then you get to the first official song on the album, To Thee We Confess. And just sets off. This is one of the shortest tracks on here, clocking in at just 2 minutes and 8 seconds. And then just, bringing that intensity from the start. And then we get into another intro. And with the intros, you get the organs, and then you get like a guy reciting satanic verses. I'm not sure who done that, but yeah, it really sets that atmospheric, almost well, not almost, a very haunting tone. And then you get the second official song on here, Thou Art Lord, which again still bringing that tendency with the guitars, the bass, drums, Vincent's vocals, and to get back to Mike Brown for Guilty, so he's on tracks 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, and 20. So all the ones that he's on, along with Vincent's vocals, is bringing just that more evil level to this album. Because obviously you hear Mike's vocals and he's got a lot of power behind them. Then on to another intro. So tracks 1 through 19 are all intros. And then we get on to track number 6, so the third official track, which is the song that got me into this band and got me to listen to this album, Ave Satanas, which kind of starts off like a mid-paced doom metal sound, and then just, having that whammy dive bomb after that first initial bit with the drums and the guitar. And then when it gets to Vince's vocals, it's just, again, everything put together is just absolutely insane. And then we get on to the fourth intro, so that'll be track number 7. Yeah, just again, haunting tone, the organs, just setting the mood before you get into the fourth official track of the album, Summoning the Master. And half of these songs are ranging from 2 minutes to 3 minutes to 4 minutes. And again, still bringing that dark, raw, heavy sound to this album. And if you've not heard this album, it'll be in the description below so you can have a listen for yourselves, because it is a great album, and I think very underrated, because I don't know how many people back in the day knew who Acheron was, except for like really like underground diehard fans. And then we get to the fifth intro, again with the satanic verses, the organ setting the mood, and because that's what's good, because you get like full-on songs, and then you get these intros, which is like, okay, we're getting this ton of atmosphere, and then we're just back into another song. So then after that intro, because a lot of these are more between like seconds long, like 39 to 45 seconds long, even over a minute, sometimes half of them. And then we get in one with Darkness, which is the fit. No, hang on. So the first official track was To Thee We Confess, and then Thou Art Lord, Ave Satanas, Summoning the Master. So this would be the sixth official track. Sorry, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. No, fifth official track. I do apologize. One with Darkness, and yeah, definitely sums up the overall title of the song, the overall feel of it. because it is just full of darkness. And I know I tend to repeat a lot of the same words, but this album has got a dark tone. It is one of those dark, heavy albums, like with Immolation's Dawn of Possession, which is an album that I have played pretty much non-stop this year. And this album I will be listening to again. And then we go on to the sixth intro before getting into the sixth official track. More of the same with the satanic verses, the organs, and and with the satanic verses, the voice is very deep and it's just something you would hear in, I would say, a giallo, like anything like the church, for example. You're hearing something like that. And then on to the sixth official track, which would be Prayer of Hell. And of course, this one's in the 2 minute mark, just over 2 minutes, so a bit more of the more faster songs on the album, and still bringing that intensity, guitars, bass, drums, vocals, and then of course, you know, Vincent and Mike just absolutely bouncing off each other, and just their vocals absolutely go well together on this release. Intro 7, giving so you go from like just hearing a heavy song to like a dark atmospheric intro. And I love those organs because it's like, okay, we just heard a lot of drumming, a lot of guitars, bass, the vocals, and then we get more of the same from Peter doing the keyboards and the organs. And then we get into Unholy Prayers, which again, bringing that overall intensity to this album. So guitars are still crushing, the bass is still crushing, the drums also still crushing, the vocals always still on point there. And then we get into intro number 8, which is 1 minute 5 seconds. So the longest one I would say on here is, yeah, just over 1 minute, just over 1 minute 20 seconds, so 1 minute 29 seconds. And it's, I just like how it's blending together there. And then we get into Cursed Nazarene, another song on here that's just bringing that intensity, the absolute just force of this album. And then we get into the second to last intro number 9. And that then goes on to the second to last song, the Enochian Key, which is one of the more faster ones, more fast mid-tempo ones, clocking in at 2 minutes 18 seconds, and still bringing that fire intensity to this album. So all the instruments on point, still crushing guitars, bass, drums, and then getting on to the last intro of the album, where you hear the last satanic verse, the last organs, that last bit of atmosphere to this album before it ends on Let Us Depart. And ends this album on an absolute high. And this clocks in at 44 minutes and 25 seconds, this album. And yeah, when I first heard this album, I was just like, just so much to it. So to get back to my notes, yeah, the satanic verses just bringing that overall atmosphere to it, and that raw, heavy tone. My favorite tracks, and it's 2 of them, is of course One with Darkness, because it has that bit of a groove moment, like halfway into the song, and then towards the end where it slows down a little bit. And of course, my favorite track by these guys, Ave Satanas. And when Vincent and Mike both scream that bit, you know, it's just like, yes, what you want to hear. And yeah, an album that definitely deserves more recognition from fans of death metal, if you've not actually come across this, because I've said before, with some albums, a lot of them would have been overlooked, and I'm pretty sure this one was overlooked. And of course, being if you're a die-hard death metal fan back in the day and you heard this album for the first time, you'll definitely like go check this album out to a lot of your fans back in the day. And of course, with these guys, I mentioned lyrical themes, of course, bands that would share them would be Morbid Angel, Vital Remains, and Deicide. Absolutely. And of course, there was a lot of bands like that in the day, and you know, and of course, and obviously the lyrical themes, and then they got the artwork to back it up with. And yeah, I do love this artwork. Really, really cool artwork. And of course, like I said, this wasn't the logo that they used back in the day, but it's still a cool logo nonetheless. And yeah, this is an album that when I heard it again, because I sometimes listen to albums and I forget to listen to other albums I heard before, and I put this on again. I don't know how many weeks ago now, maybe a month or two ago now. Now, because obviously I've been busy with stuff, and I put on again. I was just like, yeah, it still holds up 35 years later. And definitely an album, if you've not checked this out, go check out, or if you've not heard of Acheron, go and check this one out. Of course, Mike was on the second album, because around that time got kicked out of Nocturnus and went on to play in these guys. And of course, Vincent Crowley was in Nocturnus for a time. And of course, that's how they met each other. But yeah, this album, just from start to finish, consistent flow, dark, heavy atmosphere. And of course, my overall conclusion, I've just said it's heavy, it's dark, it's evil. And I've said with Consecration's new album, it's crushing. This is a crushing album. And as I always put, it's a timeless classic, it's a timeless masterpiece, and definitely deserves more love if you do love your death metal and you love your death metal to the absolute core. And yeah, I don't know what else more to say about it. Just big well done to everyone involved, from the musicians to the producers to the guest vocal, guest appearances from Peter H. Gilmore and Mike Browning, and yeah, Scott doing a good job as he always did back in the day. And of course, a lot of you out there, if you are a fan of Scott Burns and you're not listening to this one, go check it out. And yeah, great album. Hope to see these guys live at some point if they ever do decide to start doing live shows again. And that is Acheron and Rites of the Black Mass. And that is it for this episode. I do apologize for my voice. A little bit sore at the moment. Had band practice earlier. And of course, the next video will be talking about the festival that my band will be playing. And after that, once all that is out of the way, then I can carry on making more videos, because of course the festival I'm playing will be my next episode of my festival edition series. And of course, we'll be recording the last two episodes of this series until the new year. So if you enjoyed this series, don't forget to like this video, share it, and comment down below and let me know when you first heard this album, or when you first heard about this band, which album was it? And if you enjoy my content overall, don't forget to subscribe to keep up to date with everything I've got coming up. So the next one will be my preview video for the next festival happening here in Bristol. Last two of this series until the new year. There'll be more collection updates for sure, and hopefully some more chats as well. So until then, I have been Jacob Jake's Metal Chat. keep the banner of metal well and truly high. And I forgot to mention earlier, anyone new to the channel, welcome to my channel, and to all new subscribers that have subbed recently. I've just gotten over 890 subscribers, on 896 now, so I'm getting closer to 900. And big thank you for that. Means a lot. So again, been Jake of Jake's Metal Chat. Keep the banner of metal well and truly high. Do take care of yourselves out there. And I will see you all in another episode of my Metal Vault.